So shout out to that Ralph Lauren campaign this summer that spotlighted Martha's Vineyard, where black families would go to vacation because of segregation. Even though summer is over, I want to talk about another location near to where my grandparents live actually that served a similar purpose. So that area is called the Borscht Belt in upstate New York, and if you've ever seen the movie Dirty Dancing, then you're already familiar with it. For context, the Borscht Belt was primarily a leisure space for Jewish families, and it was formed between the 1920s and the 1970s when, because of anti-Semitism, they weren't allowed in other resorts. There were over 500 hotels and 50,000 bungalows across Sullivan and Ulster counties in upstate New York. Related to this, it's known as one of the birthplaces of modern-day comedy. People like Joan Rivers and Mel Brooks came up on Borscht Belt stages, which created a pipeline for Jewish comedians that went on to define the craft for generations. And also of cultural significance, families would come here to observe the High Holy Days, which, as of posting this, we're actually in between right now, with Rosh Hashanah happening at the beginning of this week and Yom Kippur being next week. And that's the foundational history of this region, because later on it will become an example of solidarity between communities, which includes African Americans, but also Italians, Irish, and even trans and queer folk. And related to Black history, in 1949, Paul Robeson actually performed at the Interracial Fur Workers Resort in the Borscht Belt before the infamous Peekskill concert riot outside the Borscht Belt, where he was attacked for his anti-colonial beliefs. And in the town of Bethel, there was the Forest View Lodge owned by these two, Fanny Hardin and William Hardin, and it was made specifically for Black families. But it was the performer Peg Leg Bates who opened a country club that was actually the first in the region. And here's a really cool nostalgic throwback ad for what that would have looked like. And the last thing I wanted to add is that 10 days before his assassination, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. gave a speech at the Concord Hotel to a group of rabbis that were there, having been invited by his longtime friend Everett Gendler, who had marched alongside King during the Civil Rights Movement. But by the 1960s, cheaper airfare, suburban growth, and reduced discrimination meant that families had other options. The Grand Hotels closed one by one, with the Concord finally shutting down in 1998. But I feel like amongst the stories of resistance in American history, places in times of leisure are pretty under-discussed. But let me know if you enjoyed this video and if you want more about other vacation spots that Black people used to go to. And then of course, follow for more.